Welcome back, everybody. We're here with another MGLA recap video. I'm Constantine, PringlesMan123 on the Discord, and today I'm joined with one of the newer teammates and fellow content creator, Brodey. Brodey, how you feeling?
Hello. I am feeling terrific on the cusp of Worlds and the LCQ. How are you feeling, Dean?
I'm good. I'm not stressing. Unfortunately, not going, but then I don't have to stress about doing well in the event. So
that is fair. Yep, that is fair.
Yeah, and so for the topic of this video, trying to give these sort of an overarching theme for each of them. I wanted to focus in on you as a new player with Universus and your nationals experience.
Yeah, sounds good to me.
Nice. And so, first thing about that is Universus is your first competitive game. So this was your first national event for pretty much anything, right?
Yeah, this is literally the first card game I have ever put any effort into playing. I dabbled in, as a kid, card games like Pokemon and Yu-Gi-Oh, but never literally since then I haven't touched on anything besides digital games. And then recently Universus just sucked me in.
Yeah. And so, you do not have a prior experience like this, but I want to ask, going into it, what were your expectations coming into nationals?
Yeah, I think it was very similar to my Atlanta expectations where, I'm not trying to push the bar with my own skill or anything just yet. I'm really just trying to get a strong feel for the game, especially playing competitively. So going into Nats, like I said, it was basically just do the best that I can. I knew there was no shot I'm going undefeated unless I just get insanely lucky. Getting into top cuts would have been awesome, but did not expect to do so. So really my main goal, like I touched on in my own video, was just doing better than I did in Atlanta. And I think I hit that goal, which is great. And then I stopped at the point where I didn't do as good and I cut it off there. And I was like, oh, yeah, I'll take it.
Yeah. And so I guess sort of continuing on with that, right? I see that you played in, I think, 7 rounds for the main event. That's at least what I saw.
Yep, I did give it one more round that I did in Atlanta. Yeah.
And so something that was mentioned in the Atlanta video, you had talked about your nerves through the event. And a lot of these events are, even for someone I've played a lot of games and I've been to a lot of tournaments. And, it's just something that can it can just get you, the nerves are
100%. Yeah. Especially me. I do struggle with social anxiety a little bit. So just being not generally, but when I'm in more of a tense situation, I can definitely I'll feel build up and I will freeze and stuff sometimes. But I don't think it happened as much, or I didn't feel as nervous as I did playing in Atlanta that I did at Nats, which is good. There were definitely a couple times, and I think I have this issue where I know if I'm either going to lose or I'm going to win, which is weird, I will have those nerves and that tension build up more than just playing the game. And it can sometimes make me fumble and make a misplay, which sucks. But I was definitely feeling better at this event, which is good.
Nice. Yeah, I definitely get the feeling both at the extremes of okay, I'm so close to victory here. I just gotta make sure this works out.
You hit that point and you're okay, if I just do this, then I'm I win.
Yeah.
And then you're oh no, wait, but what if I don't do this?
Yeah. I don't know if you had any crazy experiences in the tournament where I think I had mentioned this in the Atlanta video for me at least, where I made a physical IRL miss input where I if we were playing a digital game, I just clicked the wrong button.
Oh no.
Yeah. I don't know if that was any sort of experience you had something like that or
anything physically. I don't think so. I did. There was one point where I had stacked a card to draw and had a fearsome on board and was going to draw it and just didn't. And then I went to I just the hack resolved and I was oh.
Whoops.
Well, it is what it is. Luckily, I still took the round, but it was just I had to work through so I think I stacked a walk the dog and he just didn't draw it, and I worked through the check. But that was probably one of the biggest misplays. And then things when I was playing against a Burt, I didn't like seal the right foundation, and it cost me the game. Things like that. But yeah, I don't think any like physical blunders.
Yeah, literally, I responded with shapeshifter when I was absolutely not supposed to.
Oh, okay, that's funny.
Yeah, but yeah, you know, no matter, I guess goes to show, no matter how many games you play, like sometimes it's just not.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah, it's not going to click. And
like there's that top like tiny percentage of like, you know, the perfect players, but it's, you know, it's tough to get there.
Yeah. But it sounds good that you were kind of pushing through this event, less nerves from last time, right?
Yeah, I definitely think so. I felt good in most of my games, even when I knew it was just like hopeless at points and I was just going to lose. I just kind of like tried to stay in it, like keep my head up and work through each match. Which I think is also really good for your mental during these super long events. Like if you're going down in like game 1 or game 2, then the rest of the event is just going to be miserable. And it was nice that this one was split like between the 2 days versus Atlanta, where it was just like it was all 9 or 8 games in one day. So that definitely helped with like the mental toll of the event. I think overall I just felt myself playing better and overall I kept that mental throughout the time.
And coming back to the day split, because I believe that this was the first time Universus did this for having a Friday event. Or
I didn't even know that.
I think it was. I don't believe it's happened before. We've done, 2 days for events, but never this.
Oh, okay.
Never
like Friday, Saturday.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
And so like, how did you feel about that as this being your first experience with that?
Yeah, I think I could see how people dislike it, like just wanted to get it through all in one day. But like I said, for me as a newer player, I think it helped where I could, if I did, which I did have a couple. 2 of my games were pretty rough day 1, so I was able to just like take that and reset my mental and go into the next day and try to play better. So I don't mind the 2-day split. It does suck in like the idea of planning and traveling, having to take the extra days for events and things like that.
Yeah.
So I see why that is an issue, but as just a general like idea for an event, I do like the day split for Swiss.
And
yeah,
one thing with your day 1, I have that you ended 2 wins, 2 losses on day 1, right?
Yes.
Yeah. And so if it was the usual format where you play all 8 or 9 rounds in one day, in that scenario, you have to win out. You can't lose another one to top.
Right.
And
yeah, I went in like what I should have done, I think, and I probably should have done this in Atlanta too, is I should have just played through all my rounds. I think dropping in Atlanta was pretty much just for the mental. Like I was just so exhausted, I didn't get much sleep.
Yeah.
But in Nats, I was feeling pretty good on day 2, and I think I should have just stuck it out and played through all of my rounds just for the experience. But yeah, going into day 2 with that 2-2 record, I'm just like, hey, I got my 2 wins like I did in Atlanta. Like I went 2-4. So I was like, as long as I get one more win on day 2, then I'm technically doing better. So that was like something I just had to look forward to.
Yeah. Do you think for any future events you're gonna like just push through and play the whole event?
Yeah, I think that is like what I'm setting myself to do. Just basically, especially probably with the LCQ, maybe I'll depending on what happens. But I think starting with Denver and the whole next competitive season, even if I don't win a single game, I'm just going to stick through and play everything just to get the experience.
Yeah. And honestly, that is like part of the growth in this game, right?
Right.
Yeah, where you're, no matter what's happening, you're learning from your wins or your losses.
Exactly. Yeah. I think that's a big takeaway from each event is I'm able to learn from every match that I play, and I noticed that improvement from Atlanta to Nationals 2 is where I'm able to like pick out those misplays and like take mental notes and try not to do them from round to round.
And you also I don't know how many decks you played going into Atlanta. But from my perspective, it looked like you were trying a lot of different stuff for Nationals.
Yeah. I was bouncing around between a couple things to start. It was first a lot of Reiner 2. And I think the main thing that stuck me to Reiner 2 is there wasn't like there wasn't a ton of thought process to the deck. You kind of just went Oonga Booga and milled and just kept trying to like cycle and then went more Oonga Booga. But that character I felt was just getting steamrolled if you weren't doing the steamrolling, especially like when you flip and transform every match that I was testing, basically, if I transformed on their turn, I was dying. Like it was just because like the -5 damage doesn't help you. It's only on like their first attack, things like that.
Yeah.
So I was then in like that state of I don't know what to play. If not, I'll just fall back on Reiner. But during that testing weekend, we had Travis brought the Crystallis, and I was like, this is the most fun I've had with the deck in literally months of playing this game. So that basically made the decision for me. And I did try a bunch of stuff during that weekend too.
Nice. And yeah, like kind of, I guess you can kind of speak to the Krista deck because, you know, obviously a lot of people on the team did play it, but sort of your experience as a newer player where, like, what was it like learning this Krista deck and like learning all the lines for it?
Yeah, it was definitely, it had its perks and its drawbacks of playing that, especially with like, I definitely tested it a good amount. Always there's more room for testing, but I just don't have like that time to do all that testing. But I could see how like experienced and I have seen how these players like Justin and Travis who really know the game and really know the flow and have the game sense can just like run an event with this deck because if you are making the correct decisions like 98% of the time, there almost isn't a matchup that you can lose against. And I think my losses heavily contributed to me just not seeing those decisions to make, which is fine. That is just a learning process of the game. And then also knowing or not knowing the right buttons to press against my opponent. Like I said, where I didn't steal the right foundation, which had DR on it, and then they DR'd my attack and they killed me on the swing back, things like that. So I think it was a really good deck for me to take to this event because it made me push and actually try to run a deck and use actual like thought processes and skill to play it versus just aggro, which aggro has its place. Aggro is cool, but it helped me grow and it helped me improve, which is really what I was looking for. And I think if I were to take just like a Godzilla or one of these, like just throw all your attack decks, I really wouldn't have learned much about the game. So
yeah, Krista definitely. Well, there's definitely a skill to these aggro decks and sort of managing your risk reward with some of the strings that you'll go for.
For sure. Absolutely.
But with Krista specifically, that character's decision lines are so absurd compared to a lot of the other characters we have in this game.
Right.
Yeah, where you at least the counterpart of her is easy, where it's like, okay, well, I discard a card and I get my counters.
You just discard as much as you can. Right.
Yeah. But then having to both manage that extra resource of the counters and additionally having a choice of what card to stack on your deck and their deck is...
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I think that also is one place where I faltered a lot, where it's like, oh, I forgot you had like draw on board, or I just didn't realize one thing could draw, and I stack an attack a few times and they're just like, oh, okay, I'll pick that up, or okay, I'll mill that off, and things like that. And it happened a couple of times and I'm just like, what are you going to do?
But what you're going to do is learn from it. And
yes. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. It's like, okay, I will not put that on top of your deck again.
But yeah, so we've kind of covered a lot of like these takeaways from the main event where, sort of lessons for the future as you continue to play some of these more complex decks. Is there anything else you wanted to say, kind of like winding down from the Swiss rounds of the tournament?
Winding down, I honestly felt that so my matchups, I went through Godzillas, I went through Berts, I went through Ymir's, and I had beaten one Godzilla, lost to the Berts, lost to the Ymir's, and I was like, okay, that's expected, like they will just high roll you. But in the matches where I did win, it was more of like I beat an Ochako 4, I beat a Rappa, and then the one Godzilla I beat, it was more of just I didn't die and then swung back. So it was nice that I could at least hold my own against the more like level playing field characters that were still running these like very well built decks. And in the rounds where I did lose, it was just, okay, I just got, sent a billion damage moves multiple times, or I couldn't play my runaways, things like that. So it's more just learning to, like we talked about with Travis and Justin, play these decks efficiently enough where every decision I make matters. And that's just really what I want to like try and improve on, especially bringing decks to LCQ and continue to play these decks in the future as well.
Yeah. And I want to applaud you with choosing these more defensive decks at these events, because that does push you. Again, there is a skill to these aggro decks, but if your aggro deck is so powerful, usually your defense is pretty simplistic, where you'll hold maybe 1 or 2 cards to block with.
Yep.
And both Krista and Rodan can have a bit more complex turns with their defense. Right. Of trying to make sure you don't overextend and can't defend against your opponent, or use runaway in the right spot or whatever.
Exactly. Yeah, I definitely enjoy, I think, the defensive decks more. I'm learning that is more of my style of play. Like, I do enjoy playing aggro decks every now and then, but unfortunately, defensive decks aren't really super strong right now, but I just have at least a more enjoyable time trying to work with them and play them.
Yeah, you're speaking to the choir, dude. Every time I'm playing an evil deck, I am trying to live, okay? I'm very often not playing an aggro evil deck. But yeah, so that's awesome to hear about with the main event and sort of like keeping the new player experience going. What about side events for this event, right? Because, it wasn't just the main event that weekend. Yeah.
Yeah, I ended up playing in the retro events, and I played in the retro event. I played in the team event. I had brought a AOT and a My Hero Spotlight deck. I brought my Amajiki deck from Atlanta that I actually did really well with, and then I brought Reiner. I just put it together because I had them like still half built for AOT Spotlight, but I didn't end up playing in those, which kind of stunk. So in the retro event, I was given the grace of Frank to play Rando, which was a really cool, speaking of aggro deck, a really cool aggro deck.
Yeah.
Because I don't know retro super well. I've only played like a handful of matches ever in retro. So in last event, I literally did the same thing with Danny. I was like, give me a deck that just cares about itself. So he gave me Inferno. Then Frank wasn't going. So I just said, can I have your Rando deck? Because it just does its own thing. I don't have to care about, for the most part, like my opponent's stage and their game state. Yeah. It's just play your own cards. So yeah, in the retro event, I went 1-1, and then we dropped because we went and did this weird thing in Dallas. And I played against who was it? I played against a Yusuke who spirit shotgunned me into another dimension before I could do anything. And I also learned about some cool cards, like that's the action that seals your characters at bang, right?
I think so, yeah.
Bang, and then the whole rando deck is about the ranged keyword and like ranged attacks and stuff. And they had a foundation that says your cards don't have range this turn or something. And I was like, oh.
Huh? I didn't even know that was a card. What the hell?
Yeah, it's like a form or something that says any card you play or any attack or something like that does not have a keyword you choose. It's just like, oh, you just deconstructed my deck. That's sick. It's like good for you for knowing, I guess. So yeah, they blew me up. But then I played a Scorpion after that. And this person, I believe, was also newer to retro. So it was like a little bit more even playing field. And I did win that match. The Scorpion deck was really cool, though. And then I dropped. So that was my retro experience.
Okay. You just got a cool anime experience of Rando versus Yusuke in round 1.
Yeah. Right? Yeah, actually, yeah, that was funny. Yeah, that deck was also very cool. Just like, because it was running that tech sphere, right, where it just copies it. So they were copying Spirit Shotgun. I was like, oh my cool. God. Yeah. You don't even need it, I guess.
Just 8 Spirit Shotguns. That's all we need.
Literally. Yes. It was so cool.
Nice. And so then after retro, I believe you played in the teams event, right?
Yeah, I played in the teams event with, oh my God, who was it? I played with Matt and, oh my God, I'm blanking. I'm so embarrassed. What was his name?
Scott?
Scott. Oh my God, Scott. Yes. Sorry, Scott. I swear I remember your name. It was very nice to meet you. Yeah, I played with Matt and Scott. I was playing Rodan, which was back to my Atlanta experience, but I was playing the all like super breaker list, which was also in my consideration for Nats, but Rodan just doesn't exist right now. Mm-hmm. And then Matt was playing Burt 2 on Death, and then Scott was playing Burt 1 on Chaos. So we had a decent experience. I think we ended up like I think we played 4 rounds. We went 1-2. So we had 1 win, 1 loss, 2 ties, but we gave our final tie the win because we were dropping. So we technically, the official record was like 1-2-1. Yeah, it was fun. I had never done teams before, so it was cool to have like that dynamic. And I was the captain somehow, so it was that fun dynamic of like choosing which deck to play and different things like that. And when you have the die roll win, you get that first important choice, and then you're kind of just stuck with the rest of the matchups. But it was pretty cool. We played against Tam, Tim Keefe, and Kevin Broberg in one of our rounds, which was like, sick. And I ended up playing against Tim Keefe's Godzilla. I went 1-2, but he's just like, how am I going to win that?
You were facing off against the Titan.
Yeah. So that was fun. And it was really good to meet them too. And then we played against one of the Let's Talk teams. I think that was the final one we drew with, and we gave them the win. I was playing against a Biomecha or Biomenace, the remove Mechagodzilla character. And then one round I played against a Ymir, and then another round I played against a Sungjin Woo, who I breaker 10'd, which was really fun. And they just ended their turn. They're like, oh, okay, cool.
I got excited hearing you played against the soul leveling guy. It sounds like he didn't get to play against the
I did. Yeah, I think I took that one to time. I won the first round, and then we just didn't finish the next game because it was so back and forth. He had leveled up, I believe, all the way, if not all the way, by the end of the game. And that character is actually very scary when it gets to like the final level. It could do a lot of cool stuff, but I was just like in full defensive lockdown at that point where it was so hard to get past.
Yeah, very much a key strength of Rodan. And so would you encourage new players to, even if they don't have a team in like the MGLA sense, to give a try for these team events?
I think so. Yeah, I think teams was pretty fun. It was a good experience. It adds another level of thought to the game where you're actually like considering your matchups in like a very specific setting versus like, okay, my deck just has to be generically good against a variety of matchups. So it is cool to be able to like pin your deck, and even if you want to pin your deck against someone you might not have the greatest strength into. And then you get to, in like, I guess it was a less restrictive deck building experience. Like I thought I had heard rules about like not having like X amount of cards across decks. It was really just symbols and characters, but it does kind of push that field of saying like I brought my Chaos Crystal list. No, I have to play something, and I'm very familiar with the Chaos symbols, but I played all, which I'm not super familiar with, instead of the Void Rodan list. So it does get you out of that zone because so many other people are going to want to be playing probably like the Death and Chaos symbols. So I think it is a good experience for new players to try to jump into a teams event. Even with people you don't know, just say, hey, I'm looking for a team. Luckily, we have the luxury of having a billion people to choose from on the MGLA at our events now. So, but yeah, I would definitely recommend it. I almost thought about teaming with people not on the team, but Matt asked super early, so that kind of worked out. But yeah, I think it was a lot of fun, even if we didn't stick through it. But it was still a good time.
Yeah, I actually had a similar experience to that when I first nationals I went to was 2022, and pretty much same thing. Like I played some of the team event and did not finish it, but very similar in that sort of that extra strategic layer of, oh, this is what we want this person to match against because we won the die roll. Yeah. And at least my experience from it, I was not on a team. I played with people that I recently met at events, and it was a ton of fun. So
nice. Yeah, and it's a great way to like meet new people and have a little bonding experience at these events too.
And so we're kind of winding down on the events, the actual like universus parts of this event. Do you have any advice for new players that are dipping their toes into competitive play as we're, kind of winding down on this season?
Yeah. A couple big pieces. I think by far the largest piece is just to get as much experience as you can playing the game. If it's, finding a community to play the game with, if it's joining all these different discords, like the main Discord, Tam's Discord, the Let's Talk, where people are just constantly playing games. Find in or jump in, find random people, just throw out the messages, and just get as much game time in as you can to learn. I wish I could play more, and I really should play more. But I think like even if it's not yourself playing, just sitting in a call with people like we do all the time, where they are playing and jamming games, I have learned a lot from. And even times when like there was one time when Mike and I were playing a game and Justin was over the shouldering Mike and Travis was over the shouldering me, and basically like not playing our turns for us, but being like, this is what you should do. It was like one of the largest learning experience I've ever had playing the game, where it's just like, oh, I would have never thought to play this move, but now that I see it, it's like, okay, now it's obvious. So really just getting as much experience as you can, even if it's, you know, sitting down with your deck or in TTS and just playing through hands, you know, just make up things that happen on your opponent's side and just goldfishing and playing out your hands. That is definitely the key point, I think, to give to newer players, is just play as much. And then again, finding communities, just going into the Discords, saying, hey, I'm new to the game, I would love to play some. There are a ton of people out there who will teach you. I know it's hard locally, like local scenes, it's pretty tough, but if you can find a locals, like my locals that we play out of is technically over an hour away, make the attempt, or even try to build one up. You know, if you have other people that are interested, that will definitely help you. But for these competitive events specifically, it's go in with a positive attitude. Probably have the idea that you're not going to do the best. Maybe you are insane at the game and you will do the best, but just stick through it, play out your rounds, and keep a positive mental, because I don't think, and it is unfortunate to see it happen, but I don't think I could have ever lost a match at Atlanta or Nationals unless it was like super decisive and just like it ruined my day. Like I guess I'm just not that kind of person. So I guess I have that benefit of keeping that positive mental, but if you can maintain that at these events, then you'll be good. Yeah.
And I kind of want to dissect some of it, at least, where like, you know, with that mention that you, the game where you and Mike played with Travis and Justin as your sort of like over the shoulder teammate giving you advice.
Right.
For anyone that's new, you know, just talking to your opponent, or anyone that's like willing to help you, if you just ask. Like a lot of people are down to just talk about like, yeah, you know, this is what you can do in this matchup, or like these are things you could be looking for, stuff like that.
Yeah, I think a large part of testing isn't just playing the game, right? It is, you know, taking your time and actually talking about your decisions. Like if you made a decision you want to go back on, like if you're actually testing, then you should be okay with just going back on it. You know, that is the point of testing, not just, oh, I made a mistake, let's just play it out and see what happens. So testing in the right situation, in the right environment can go so far for you as a player.
Yeah, very well said. And for any new people, hopefully we're gonna get influx of people with Critical Role, just because how
I think so.
It is.
Yeah. I think there's a couple different like subsects of players that it will draw in. Like I think we had talked about this before too. Like the PvE is going to draw in some players. Critical Role as a collector's piece and as an IP will draw in players. And then like out of those very small groups already, then some will trickle into the actual game, into the actual competitive scene. So, I mean, as long as that both of those like subsects of players are large enough, then it could potentially have like a big increase of players for competitive. But being a like almost day one Critical Role fan and like knowing the community and things like that, they are very into Critical Role and just Critical Role. So we'll see what happens. If anything, I think it will just draw them out as, you know, getting into the game and just collectors. Like I had a lot of friends at Unplugged who I taught using just the Challenger decks. And they're like, well, can you just play with Critical Role cards? And I was like, yes, technically you can, but there's also a big set coming out that will let you add more into these decks and things like that. But you can also combine cards, and some were interested, some weren't. So I think that's just a aspect of being a IP based game. There's also some people that are interested and some people that aren't.
Yeah. Well, hopefully that we get some Critical Role spotlight events that like maybe pull them out.
I think that would be fun. Yeah.
And like at least of the previews we've seen, it seems like Critical Role is a very fun, like insulated set or like world of cards to play with.
I think so. Yeah. I know a lot of people aren't super hot on most spotlights, but I think Critical Role is looking like pretty well rounded for Spotlight so far.
Mm-hmm.
I know there's a few problem characters that some people are complaining about, but it'll be fine.
What's a set without some villains, you know?
Right, exactly. Well, this one doesn't have any villains.
Apparently. But we'll get our evil cards someday. I'll complain about that another day.
Let's just talk about how evil and good is in the set for the next hour.
Yeah, that'll be a different video for sure.
Well, I'm still saying there's like 1 or 2 secret rares left, and the other one had all on it. So there's a chance you see a card with evil or good on it.
He's giving me hope. He's giving me hope for this.
There's a very small chance.
Yeah, hopefully. So kind of, I guess, winding down our talk with Nationals, is there any final thoughts you want to give, or have we kind of hit a lot of the talking points you wanted to go over?
I think we hit most everything. Jumping late into the competitive season, I knew it was my main goal to just learn the game and improve, but I am definitely looking forward to Worlds in this whole cycle concluding, and I'll be at Denver, so that will be like the start of the new season, and I'm definitely preparing myself to grind this one out and try to just get as much as I can. Mm-hmm. And I think like my high bar goal for the competitive season is at least to just top cut once. I'll be like, okay, I did. Yeah, that's cool.
Hell yeah. Get another name up there, top 16.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah.
We'll see.
Yeah, I believe we got the resources. We can do it. We have the positive energy. But yeah, so that's kind of winding down the video. Do you have any shout outs you want to give?
Shout outs to the team. Shout outs to everyone that helps test. Shout outs to everyone who top cut at the event. I'm sure everyone has probably said these names in every single video, so I'm sure everyone knows who it is. Shout out my YouTube, Brodey Cannon. I make some fun content and do the reels and stuff. Shout out to you for being a great host and doing this series.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Of course.
Yeah, he hit on a lot of the ones I'd say. Obviously his YouTube channel, we'll link it in the description. Make sure to like and subscribe to this video. Check out the team's official website. But yeah, with that was Brodey's Nationals 2024 recap video. And, we'll be signing off, everybody. See you in the next one.
See you. Thank you.